So there's no one answer to say what is a crisis, but an organization that's in tune with itself will know what constitutes a crisis. One of the things that make or break a crisis is who speaks to the media.
You're still putting your facts together, but a journalist is calling. What do you do?
Honesty should be the bedrock of any crisis.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Comms Hub podcast. And this is, of course, the platform where we talk about all things PR, digital marketing, and branding. And as always, we have industry experts who bring in their knowledge, their insights, and their experience in the different topics that we tackle. And today we'll be tackling the topic of crisis communication. What it is, the importance of, responding in time when a crisis hits, how to respond as well, because people tend to hide during these challenging times. But, these two factors can really, really determine whether your business survives the crisis and, maintains its reputation or even enhances it, or whether it drowns. And as always, we have great experts here in studio, and joining us today is the communications head for reputation management and financial PR at the Liberty Group, and she will give us insight onto how to prepare for a crisis, how to respond with clarity, and also recover with integrity, because these things happen. We cannot run away from them. The best thing that we can do is really to equip and empower ourselves. Lulama, thank you so much for joining us in studio. Now, sometimes people might define a crisis comms as, an event. Not everything qualifies as a crisis comms. Let me put it this way. How would you define a crisis?
Thank you, Nomsa. So a crisis is an event that has the potential to bring the company into disrepute. So as you deal with issues on a day-to-day basis, not every issue qualifies as a crisis, but there's certain events that will be defined, and the company needs to make up its mind in terms of what constitutes a crisis for that particular business. So, which is why the background of always being ready for crisis communication, because that's when you start thinking about, in a business such as ours, whatever that business is, what would we define as a crisis? What would our shareholders define as a crisis? What would regulators define as a crisis? So it's a whole host of elements that companies need to think about before the crisis erupts, because then that determines how they respond to a crisis. So there's no one answer to say what is a crisis, but an organization that's in tune with itself will know what constitutes a crisis for them, right?
Absolutely, it's important. Yeah. You touched on a very important point of preparing. A lot of companies, and I've seen it in my journey as a journalist, I've also seen it in my journey as, a PR practitioner, where crises catch a lot of companies or brands off guard. And you talked about preparation. And I don't think it's something that, a lot of establishments or entities are really aware about, that we can prepare for a crisis. Take us through the preparation stage.
So it's a hygiene factor that it's unfortunate for companies that are unprepared, because in a highly regulated environment, it would be such a pity if a crisis catches you off guard. Having said that, it's not possible to always prepare for each and every scenario. However, if you've got your scenarios planned out, to say, if it's such and such a scenario plays out, this is how I would respond. And basic hygiene factors like your processes, who belongs to the crisis management team, who constitutes the crisis management team, apart from communications as now the conduit to whatever the stakeholders will be, who in the business sits in that CMT. That's what you call it in my business. Risk is a critical factor, a critical component in terms of sitting in that committee, because they advise, they've got the knowledge and the understanding of what constitutes a risk for any particular business. Legal is there to provide the guardrails to say, are we communicating within the legal framework? Are we communicating in line with what's expected of us by our regulators? So in the financial services, you'd need to take into account stakeholders such as the FSCAs, the prudential authorities, and those type of bodies, and our customers, of course, being the main concern in our background as we communicate when a crisis erupts. So readiness takes those hygiene factors. Do you have your processes in place? Do people know what role they will play should a crisis erupt? Do you know those people? It doesn't have to be by name all the time, but just by their roles, to say this is the roles of the digital person, so that they can trigger on the digital platforms. This is the role of the business head, for example, as a spokesperson, because one of the things that make or break a crisis is who speaks to the media, because we've seen companies literally going to ground because there's no one to speak.
Oh, yes.
So
because they haven't prepared.
Because they haven't prepared. So a managing exec would know that they're managing exec, but they should know what that role entails in the situation of a crisis. So preparation.
And I guess preparation also means that it also kind of, or let me put it this way, I guess timing is also important. How timeous you respond, whether it's maybe a data breach or something like that, and something leaks in the media. You've mentioned, and I've mentioned that, sometimes as journalists, one would try and get hold of a company because something like this has struck. How important is timing when in response to a crisis?
Timing is everything in a crisis situation. However, you need to balance that with accuracy. So what you don't want to do is to go and respond for the sake of responding, and yet you don't have all your facts. So, which is why the preparation I'm speaking about is to say, if something has been declared as a crisis, because remember, there's certain triggers in the business that will say, okay, this is not a crisis, let it be dealt at this level. But should it be declared, so a data breach is a crisis, right? Yeah. So should it be declared as a crisis? We've got customers who've lost their information to, let's just say, to hackers. So already, if you've got those hygiene factors that I'm talking about, once we know that a company information has been hacked, who must prepare that dossier of information to say what happened, what impact does it have on clients, how many clients have been impacted. That basic data that will empower us to respond. So yes, timing is important, but importantly is the accuracy, because you don't want to go to 702 to say, okay, no, we know that we've gotten a data breach, but you don't know the facts, because then it defeats the very purpose.
All right. So a call comes in, the news of the data breach has broken, it's on social media, it's everywhere. You're still putting your facts together, but a journalist is calling. What do? Do you avoid the call while putting what is the first kind of way to respond, or the right way to respond in an instance where there's still information gathering?
Firstly, you don't avoid the call. It doesn't matter, even if you feel that you don't have anything to respond on. Take the calls, acknowledge the calls, and just say that, yes, there is something like this that has happened. If at that point especially to us now who become the media interface. So typically, the leadership then should determine, or can we even say that there's been a data breach? Let's just say, for example, because sometimes business is not at a point where it wants to communicate that, but and maybe that's the fastness where as the internal team, as the crisis management team. We need to agree to say, okay, at the very least, let's confirm that there is a data breach. However, let's just tell people or journalists that we don't have information right now. We will respond timelessly. And then as soon as we can, literally respond. And then I think the other important thing that crisis communicators that I think would be important to know is that depending on the industry, the financial services industry is highly regulated. And there are guidelines in terms of when you should have communicated, for example, with your clients, have communicated with the general publics. So I think because comms is not a pretty girl's job, right? No. We need to understand those things that influence how we work, so that we advise our businesses with some intelligence and with some insight based on what we know.
Sometimes these kind of, let's say, data breaches or issues happen because of, a lacks internally, right? Somebody did not do what they were supposed to do, or went against maybe the company's values as well, because that can also lead to a crisis. How important is taking accountability to your stakeholders in a situation like this?
Honesty should be the bedrock of any crisis comms rollout. Because if you're not honest, firstly, you will not be consistent in your communication, because if you're not being honest from the get-go, you'll always have something to cover up. So if you're speaking honestly, even at your own failures in the system, acknowledge what that is, be transparent about it, and you'll be surprised how forgiving clients are. In fact, it's not even surprising, because we're also humans right around this room. We know when we've been wronged by brands, and we know we're forgiven. So it's then to take that approach to say, perhaps let me just take that little chance, as embarrassing as it is, to just be honest and upfront. And it goes to the value system, and that's when you test the value system of your own leadership. If you can sense that there's a bit of wanting to hide and wanting to sort of avoid certain conversations, then you as the communicator, perhaps then you must ask yourself certain questions in terms of your own alignment with that brand. I've been fortunate in that, in fact, even with crisis situations where I didn't feel confident and comfortable, but I've had the leadership that says, no, but let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
And my learning in all those instances has been issues do go away. In the actual fact, even
more especially in South Africa, where
yes,
there's a lot happening.
Yes.
We move on quite quickly.
quite quick. So there's no point in you just prolonging your pain and covering up because you're scared that your brand might take a knock. Rather take that knock now and then rebuild.
People move on. Because also what I've noticed, and in my experience, is the more you try to hide, then you give journalists a reason to dig up, and find the truth as well.
Yes,
I've had experience in running a PR agency where you find that people within that business or company think that managing the reputation of a company is solely the responsibility of the comms or the PR, department or agency. Speak to us about how important it is for everyone within the company, more especially the leadership, to take that responsibility that is collective.
In fact, reputation, what I always say is that it's the responsibility of everyone, from the security at the gate to the receptionist to whoever you meet as you go to the high office, because those are the people that will make the choice to defend the brand. So, for example, if you take this example of a data breach, a journalist that's curious, is not going to call Lulama, because, I mean, they know that I'm going to be measured, I'm going to be PRing stuff.
And you're trained.
I'm trained. They're going to just call reception and say, what has happened? But if you don't have that ingrained culture to say, guys, this is our organization, it belongs to all of us, it's our job to protect it all the time, then you don't have such. So reputation belongs to anyone. I mean, I don't deal with all the issues that come to the business. I mean, obviously, because there's just no human capacity that can do that. For example, there's so much correspondence that leaves the business without my involvement. But if a reputation is ingrained and embedded in the way we think, then anyone who's writing a letter to you as a policyholder has got that lens in mind to say, how is it going to land to the client? How is it going to, how might it ruin the reputation of Liberty? In fact, matured companies now, I mean, I sometimes I do get queries in my email to say, I think this will affect our reputation. And that'd be somebody from, let's just say, from the call center, who is not even in the comms team. So I think the new age company now will entrench reputation. When people are being onboarded to say, what is the worth of our reputation, and what would it mean if you were to do something that's against it? And that is where, just on the I want to say policing side, but it's not policing as such. But if you come, we've got our media policy that guides who can speak to the media, and we do refresher communication to say, please remember, and if you would like to speak to the media, because I mean, this day and age, people are creating their own platforms.
Yeah.
So we do guide that, and these are the guidelines in terms of how you conduct yourself, because it impacts the reputation, even though it's your own personal platform. So it's everyone's.
You know, for more especially inexperienced companies, when a crisis strikes, one might see it as the end. But I also believe that the way in which, we respond can also create an opportunity, right? Yes. And probably cement public trust, and maybe even gain trust from, people who...
From your detractors.
Exactly, as well. Yes. Let's just talk about that in your experience.
Well, crisis is always good, because, as you're saying, it creates it, because it just provides that platform for you to rethink and go back to the drawing board if you need to understand where the processes may have been. So, for example, if and I'm talking about the data breach one, because it's one of the things that Liberty had a couple of years ago. So it then provides that platform to say, let's just look at our processes. Let's just look at how did this happen? Because if everything is going well, there's no need for you to revisit some of the things. True. It's only when something like a crisis happens that then it gives you that opportunity to sort of go back to the drawing board. And for that matter, even on the crisis comm side, how did we do on this crisis? Because, as I said, it's not possible to think about all scenarios that may happen. Yeah. So a crisis, in fact, it will hit you on the one thing that you never thought about. So then post-crisis, when because then it provides a moment to reflect, you think about what could we have done wrong. And for example, one of the things that we had to do was to ensure that we simulate, because we thought oops, we had not been simulating for a while. Because like I'm saying to you, if things are good, you don't think most of, that it could just turn overnight. So simulation, you think about, you review your processes, you review certain practices, and then think about it then as an opportunity to gain trust with your target audiences. Liberty, when we went through that, it was a case study because of exactly how we handled it. The regulator was speaking highly of us because it was then proof point of how a situation like that could be handled by the industry.
So you created a model.
A model, a template,
Yes.
as it were.
Yeah.
And so it was it was that plus one thing for us to say, in actual fact, a crisis can be good.
And, after the dust has settled, how important is it, and how do you go about reassuring your stakeholders and, using the scenario of a data breach where somebody entrusted you, for example, with their confidential information, and somehow there's a leak because maybe there was a lax in internal processes. How do you then, go back and gain that trust and give that assurance that, something like this will not happen again?
It's firstly in the immediate responses of the aftermath, how you craft that messaging, right? Because that messaging has got to inspire trust in itself in the moment of crisis, right? So that whatever work you do thereafter is built on that. Typically, one message that we kept on communicating was that we continue to be a trusted provider in the insurance space. And while the incident is unfortunate, but you can still rely on us to look after your important assets, right? So you start during the crisis moment to inspire that confidence. And then there's a couple of things that we can do on the marketing side, some campaigns that we can do that can inspire the trust and the confidence. But I think one of the most important things that we do is the robust stakeholder engagement, because especially after you've been shaken like that, you don't want now to be communicating via campaign or via letters. Then
Yes.
you can just up the ante a little bit, speak to the people directly, depending on their leadership to say is it something that we want to do. Do the road shows, with staff, engage on a meaningful one-on-one type basis, because that's important in terms of how you will recover, and how quickly you just put the crisis behind you, really.
Sure, that has been quite enlightening. What would be some of, maybe one or two important lessons that you have learned in this field while, communicating through a crisis, if I can put it that way? Just some advice for some of our viewers who might be in this space, company owners and all of that, just to prepare them. What are some of the key, lessons that you have learned that you can share with our viewers?
For the communications professionals, I'd say know your business in and out, so that you are baked into the business, so that when a business is hit by something like this, they know that it's a communications deliverable, because they will take over and want to communicate. And once they want to communicate without that expertise of communication, it's no point you having the expertise if that expertise is not serving the business. So know the business in and out, so that this, when you have to execute and implement, it's almost second nature to you to guide the business. and not be second guessing at the time, because one of the things that you'll need is to learn to breathe and just calm down a little bit. And
I love that. I love that. I think when things are messy, and when the hits the fan, the last thing that we think about is breathing.
Yes.
And just taking that moment to, just to reflect, because then I think that gives clarity, right?
To your own mind, and also it inspires confidence to the very stakeholder that you're trying to serve, because I can imagine if people are waiting for you in a meeting and then you come all flustered. So just fake it until you make it, if you must, really. But just give that quiet confidence that you can handle this, because believe it or not, they're looking to you for answers. But the minute they sense, because energy doesn't lie, right? The minute they sense that perhaps you're not sure, then that's when all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. And I mean, if the communicator, who is the in-between between the public and the company is not confident, then that creates a problem as well. I've learned so much from your insights today, the fact that we can plan for a crisis.
Of course.
Where possible. Obviously, the new dynamics all the time, but at least with the knowledge that we have, we can plan, keeping calm, being transparent and honest. And I think, as you said, these are some of the ways that we can navigate through these challenges. And of course, it creates opportunity, as you say. You love it.
I love me a good crisis.
Give me a crisis or two, and
I love me a good crisis.
Help you navigate through that.
Yeah.
So, I think these are also just very important, takeaways from those that are listening. That the world does not end.
Yes, definitely.
It's how you prepare, how you respond. The timing, taking accountability. Those are very, very important aspects to consider.
Yes.
And thank you for spending your time with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We really, really enjoyed the conversation. And that was Lulama Philiso from Liberty Group, such a big brand that she is responsible for. And we really thank her for taking her time. And as we promised, our guests are experienced. They have insights. This is not like a normal podcast just to, fill in your time. For industry professionals, for agencies, even for students in the communication space, this is really a platform for you to equip yourself, to learn, and just to keep abreast of, new developments within our profession and our discipline as well. So as always, if you want to keep contact with us, should I give away a cell phone number? No. Social media at Tishala Comms. We are on Twitter. We are on LinkedIn. We are on Instagram as well. And just to view more of our work, you can go on to tishalaCommunications.com. And of course, we are on YouTube as well. Our next episode, I'm told by our producers, will be about influencer marketing. Don't want to miss it. So we'll see you in the next 2 weeks.